Hey there, and welcome to Tell Me More, the podcast where real people share real stories. I'm Rebecca, and each week I sit down with students, entrepreneurs, and business professionals from all walks of life to hear their unfiltered experiences, struggles, wins, and everything in between. So, let's get comfy and tell me more. Welcome back to the podcast, and today we are speaking to Tarisai. So, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and what kind of career you're in at the moment?
As I mentioned, my name is Tarisai MacMillan. I am a lawyer by profession. I'm a lawyer by profession, so I'm an advocate of the High Court of South Africa.
Mhm.
However, I'm a non-practicing at like lawyer, so I don't practice in court. But what it means, what I do is that I work for or run a non-profit called Mosaic Training Service and Healing Center, and I'm an advocate for a violence prevention specialist, advocating for women who experience domestic and intimate partner violence. My role or the work that we do is to ensure that women have safety in relationships, homes, and communities by providing access to justice, support, and healing. Um, we also do gender equality and safety work, where we work with patriarchal masculinities, trying to ensure that we advance prevention and that the violence doesn't happen in any case. We
Mhm.
also work on a systems level to ensure that we advance the domestic violence laws, that they don't just exist on paper, but that they're implemented. So that's about me. I'm a mother of three. That's a big, big deal, the biggest deal. And this is what fuels why I do what I do,
Mhm.
because I want my children to grow up in a safe society and community. I believe that violence has no place in any home or any relationship where love is what someone trusts you. And when they trust you, you want to keep them safe. And some people just don't have the tools to do that. And so we try to design those things. So I use my legal skills to hone in on that. And I'm a wife as well. I don't know which one trumps, wife or mother, but either way, it is a big deal that I'm also a wife. And those identities also fuel, being a wife and a mother, fuel what I do. I am a Christian, and I think that's also important because that grounds the work that I do in the Christian values that I try to embody. But on that level as well, I am an African feminist. I ground my work in equality and believe that uh, you know, females are human beings and nobody is born to be unequal. And so it's not just, so when I talk about African feminism, for us, it's about how do you create spaces in which you decolonize, not from just um, the female agenda, but also working with the historical complexities
Mhm.
of the past around colonialism, apartheid, and how that has influenced the violence narrative in our societies and country, particularly in Africa. And how do you begin to reshape and reimagine the spaces we exist? Yeah, so that's me in a nutshell.
Well, you sound like an amazing person.
I
Um,
hope so.
Oh, it sounds like you do amazing work, and it's amazing how you're able to use your educational background to help others around you. I think a lot of people might not see education as a way to help others, mainly just to grow their career sometimes. And I've definitely had those thoughts myself. And so I think it's amazing that even though like working in law and everything, you're still able to use that to help really big issues that are happening in our society.
Yeah,
So
I've been blessed in that way.
that's amazing. So what inspired you to or led you to be involved in supporting women and who experience domestic violence?
It's a bit of a long story, but to try and cut it short, because it is a podcast, is so I, of course, went to law school, and I wanted to become rich. I mean, that's why anybody studied law. I don't know anyone who studied law to want to just do good.
Hmm.
I honestly did not have any nobility or noble ideas about what I was going to do with my education. But as I mentioned, I'm a Christian, and so I think what we in our in our faith, one of the elders, I think it's Elder Husband, who talks about by divine design.
Hmm.
I think by divine design, the Lord knows the end from the beginning. So I registered for the wrong course first. So I started doing I started to do a BA before I did my law degree.
Hmm.
Because in South Africa, you can go straight into law. You don't necessarily have to do a pre-degree.
Hmm.
But so I ended up doing a BA law, and then after that, then I ended up doing my law degree. And because of that, you spend a lot of time when you're doing humanities, you've got some time. So I volunteered a lot. It was not part of my trajectory. I did Ken Step, I did Khayelitsha, and I grew up in Khayelitsha, which is a
Hmm.
township in South Africa. And so, but I was now suddenly living in the suburbs and moving between suburb and township, and going back to my township as a volunteer as a student, coming in a fancy bus, or what I considered a fancy bus, because those are
Hmm.
resources I was not accustomed to.
Yeah.
I mean, it is jarring in terms of your worldview. Uh, and also, like, I was studying courses like sociology and doing all sorts of social anthropology, all these courses you pick up at university. And
Yeah.
suddenly my community was being studied as something, things that I cherish and love in my
Hmm.
community were studied, social scientists were writing about it as if it's something that's bad.
Yeah.
So, those things shake you up. And I think that for me, didn't sit well. I think there was like that like colonial mind view and set, but I didn't know what to do with it, I suppose,
Hmm.
in a lot of ways. I didn't know what to do with that knowledge, um, and what that feeling. But when I went to law school and I started like really grappling with all these issues, and I was quite like a student activist, I suppose, and I found my rage, I suppose, in politics, right? You think, okay, you're gonna become like some sort of politician. But the time I went to law school, in my penultimate year, I was president of the Black Law Students Forum, which is a transformative space for trying to create transformation within the law faculty and making sure that Black students will start, finish.
Hmm.
I I then, through that, we partnered with the Department of Correctional Services, and we went to prison, and literally to visit a prison, the
Hmm.
Posmo prison. Posmo prison is gangs, and everyone is fascinated, and we were doing criminal law. We were excited to see the gangsters that we were learning in case law and all sorts of things. Um, but something happened is that when we got there, we didn't even get to go to maximum. Actually, we got to go to the juvenile section.
Okay.
And that was something we didn't think about, that young people were in prison. And at the time, there was no Child Justice Act in South Africa. So children as young as 14 or 10 were in there. They were very young.
Oh,
You know what I
wow.
mean? And
Yeah.
some of them didn't have resources, because if you're awaiting trial, you didn't get to go into the system. So they didn't have proper clothing. Some of them had been awaiting. And some of them, when we had a chance to ask them questions, they'll tell you it was a Friday. They'll tell you like, I cannot afford 100 rand bail. Some had, 200, 400, 500, whatever amount. But these are amounts as students, some of us would make in tips when you're waitressing, and you'd go and blow it at a party somewhere.
Yeah.
And some people where the money were like, I can offer you bail, and the system doesn't work that way. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I remember, I think some of my friends thought I was crazy. I just, guys, we need to get books. Oh my goodness, like I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And
Yeah.
at the entrance of the prison, it says, "Welcome to Paulsmoor, a place of new beginnings, center of excellence." And I was like, what's excellent about that? But also for me, I was thinking, well, if these young people are housed here, I mean, even if you're 16 and you do a major crime
Hmm.
and you get like like let's say like 20 years, you end up, you come out about 36. Even if you get 40 years, you're going to be like what? I don't know. You'll still be young when you come out. So I kept
Yeah.
on thinking about that. Like that's 56, that's like young. Like even if they get 20 years, they'll still be like 36 years old. They're young. But what is excellent about it? What kind of programming? And I was very bothered by that.
Hmm.
And lo and behold, a few yeah, in the following year, met Young in Prison. It had been started in Netherlands, and they were growing in South Africa, and they were looking for a project coordinator. And I had zero experience. I was still a student, but I was like, I'm just gonna apply. I have no chance. I was actually looking for a waitressing job when I
Oh wow.
online, and I saw this advert, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna apply and see. And I even was so honest in the interview. I was like, I have nothing. I have just this passion. And I was asked, how do you handle your stress? And I was like, I pray. And I left, thinking, who says they pray? Like when they handle situations. But I got the job. And
Wow.
I remember like one of my friends saying, it's up to you how you want to build this South Africa wing.
Yeah.
And so I spent 7 years there, and I built it and designed programs, rehabilitation, and we used creative arts as a rehabilitation model.
Hmm.
And one of the things that we used to do was this thing called life maps, where the young people would write like, birth is like a river of life type of model.
Hmm.
You write birth, and you're trying to trace where it went wrong. How did you get to where you are now? And then trying to figure out how we can change it.
Yeah.
And I started reading these maps all the time, and these young people had something in common. It was about a lot of them, it was the adult relationships. When adult relationship changed in their life, whether someone died, it trusted, there was violence in the home, and then maybe parents broke up, or whatever it is, it had to do with how adults were in their lives.
Hmm.
And what happens when you are living in communities that are broken is that there are positive and negative things. And the negative friends, like gangsters, are waiting in the wings for young people,
Hmm.
right? They create a sense of belonging. They make you feel loved. They make you feel like you need all the things you want from home. You get it in gangsterism,
Yeah.
right? And so what they hook you with that, with the stuff you need the most, and then of course introduce you to guns and drugs and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, well, if from yes, we're doing amazing work from a response level, but if I were to start working on a prevention level where we intervene before, where we work on these adult relationships, where we work with young people before and create safe environments in their caregiving environments, can we make a difference?
Hmm.
And that's where I made the shift, and I started working with resources aimed at prevention of child abuse and neglect, moved to Fight for Peace, and now at Mosaic, where I'm like working with domestic and intimate partner violence. Because if we restore relationships, even if the mom and dad don't get back together, but if they are positive,
Hmm.
the caregiving environment is positive for the child, we then can really change the way a young person's life can be.
Yeah,
And that,
definitely.
yeah.
That's amazing. It's amazing how much you've been able to do. And yeah, I had no, it's amazing that you're able to start like from that a prison experience, and work your way up to like the actual root of where the issues start. And I think that's really amazing. And so, um, what does your day-to-day work look like, in supporting women in crisis situations and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I work on an executive level. So my
Hmm.
job is to enable our 76 staff members to be able to do what we do. We are frontline workers.
Hmm.
We provide psychosocial support. We are providing crisis support to survivors when they come to court to ensure that we contain them. We help them to separate fact from emotion and put things on paper, but in a safe way, in a way that they're able to present themselves to court. Many of them are unrepresented. They cannot afford representation.
Hmm.
So we are there to ensure that without representation, they're able to forge ahead. So
Hmm.
that's a big thing for us. Um, we also, part of my job is to enable when the system is broken and is not working, how do you fix it? I provide the strategic insight. My job is to raise income for this. So we have to raise 33 million rand a year
Oh,
to
wow.
support our work. That's my role, to ensure that survivors have access wherever they are. We are there to ensure that we create equitable access to services.
Hmm.
We run Tutuzela care centers, which are 24-hour rape and DV centers.
Hmm.
So whenever somebody is in crisis and they've experienced this thing, my job is to ensure that the service is there in their community. My job is to ensure that our shelters run. We run two shelters that are 24 hours, and that are stage one and stage two. Um, we make sure that there's transport. Part of my work is to ensure that there's emergency transport. So the income that we raise is to provide for those services.
Hmm.
That is my role. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. Um, and then what do you think are some of the most common challenges that women face with domestic violence?
Yeah. Well, look, I think the biggest challenge that women face is that we live in a society where, for the longest time, and when we talk about patriarchy um, and toxic masculinity, is that we have always put men above women,
Hmm.
right? And not necessarily in the patriarchal order that we know in the scriptures, but the
Hmm.
patriarchal order that we've put is almost like elevate one human being over the other. So there's a sense of entitlement that
Hmm.
exists in men's space and female spaces in the world, in which one is weaker than the other, and not from a physical standpoint, but really just from an existence standpoint. So as a result, you actually have men who think they can discipline women by hitting them. Like, if you
Hmm.
disrespect me, I can hit you. I can shout at you. I can control. If I feel powerless somewhere else, I can come and control. Like, one of the things that we always discuss with men is what makes you, if you're at a bar or even when you're at work and your boss shouts at you, why do you not retaliate?
Hmm.
But you hold or within that anger and you bring it home. And the minute your wife or your partner or your child says something, what are you going to do? You hit, you take away, you know what I mean? So it is about power and control,
Hmm.
because there are spaces where you actually can control yourself.
Yeah.
You actually can manage your anger and you do not show rage in that way. But because there is something in our society that we have created,
Hmm.
and that is, you know what I mean, that makes you think it's okay to discipline and to hit and to exercise power and control. So those are the issues we have. And of course, that's on the deeper level. And then they're exacerbated or made worse by inequalities around lack of access to income. So when people are frustrated, what do they do, right? When people do not get their way, what do they do? You get when they hit, and they hit what that which they believe is weak.
Hmm.
And that is the major thing that women face when it comes to domestic and intimate partner violence. So then there's also issues of, like, the way we also are socialized. I do not know how to communicate and express myself. So maybe even you yourself, as a woman, you express yourself in an aggressive way. It then triggers your partner, your
Hmm.
husband, in another way. Then, there's just combustion. So part of our gender equality is not just working with men on how to be nonviolent, but it's also working with women on how to also be nonviolent, because it might not necessarily be physical, it might be
Yeah.
emotional, it might be the way you talk, and then it triggers all of you in a way that you then respond in a violent way, in an abusive manner. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That sort of thing. So those are some of the complexity. And part of it is also about culture and so religion and culture or beliefs play a big role in how people misinterpret ways of being, what is expected of them by their religion or by their culture. And then it turns into norms that are negative
Hmm.
and that are toxic in a way that then influences violence and abuse.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. Like I've never thought of it that way. I've never been in a um yeah, in a conversation where I've been able to like talk about this and get to learn more. And so it's really amazing that you are here explaining how everything
Yeah,
works.
yeah. No, I know. Like, I think it's something we take for granted because you see it
Yeah,
in the news, and sometimes you have not, and that's part of our work that we do is how do we
yeah,
engage? How do we begin to see? Because sometimes people want to blame it on alcohol,
yeah,
you know, but you're able to drink at the bar and drink and get drunk and have whatever fun. And you don't, and if someone comes, you do not do something, but when you come to someone that is weaker, you want to do something. And
yeah,
those are things that we want to work. You can't say, oh, it's because I was unemployed and I'm poor. No, there
yeah,
are many poor people that do not hit people or
yeah,
do not abuse. And so we have to look deep in what fuels that, what
mhm,
makes me want to do it. And you will see that at the root of it, it's really around those patriarchal stuff that we have created in society or what we identify as what defines masculinity. Masculinity for us is beautiful. What I
mhm,
always like to say, I'm attracted to a man. I'm a heterosexual woman,
mhm,
attracted to masculinity. But it can show up in a very negative way, in a way that's toxic. So our thing is not to say that we're dismantling masculinity or making it that it must not exist. It's beautiful. I'm raising sons who are masculine, that's beautiful. But
mhm.
what we're saying is don't show up in a way that is want to exercise power and control or in a way that doesn't allow someone else to exist with you. You
Yeah,
get what I mean? And that is what we raise awareness on.
yeah, that's amazing. And so, was there like a specific moment that you could see the work that you have done where you could see a real change start to happen?
It is daily, hey? I mean, there are heart-wrenching moments in our work, but we
Mhm.
continue to do this because there are also beautiful moments. Last year, I received a letter from a woman who received services from Mosaic 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And she says that changed her life, you know? She said she never went back to the relationship. It was a bit funny because that partner, the ex-partner died. And she says she was like, now that he's dead, she actually can write this letter because she felt some sort of freedom. But
Yeah.
that freedom also came from the services she received. She was just expressing 20
Yeah.
years later. I mean, I wasn't part of Mosaic 20 years ago, but to receive that, and then you have like a lady, actually, I'm looking at the earrings I'm wearing, and a lady from our shelter, I did a shelter visit,
Hmm.
and she said she just was expressing well, she's gone back to school, she finished school now. She said because of the skills development from the shelter that she received, she and her daughter are living well, she's gotten a job, she's built a life because the shelter gives you space
Hmm.
in the moment of crisis when you are running away from a domestic violence situation to be safe, to be able to gather your thoughts, to be able to look for work, or if you're in work, just to be able to gather yourself and find work and all of this. She says now she's gathered herself.
Hmm.
But when I responded, she says, oh, I remember you with the beautiful earrings. It inspired me. Now I have my own collection. I actually didn't even talk to her about earrings. But that's, you know what I mean? Even that is a reminder of femininity.
Hmm.
We have a sewing project in which we do pieces to piece where women sew and make, we call it stitching lives together, and women make beautiful garments that they sell and earn money from. That's amazing. So
Yeah.
there are many pockets of beautiful things of change we see, but also not just from women. We have a behavior change program for men.
Hmm.
You know, domestic violence is complex. It's rooted in love. I can sit here and say, you're in a domestic, leave him. But he's the father of your children, or he's your brother, or he is your father. All of those play complexities.
Yeah.
And so we want to restore. So sometimes, after you've gone through our processes, we say, okay, if you don't want to leave, is there a way that we can engage him?
Hmm.
Do you want to talk about it? And many men want to change, and they come to our
Oh,
program and their support groups, and we see men change, and we see powerful testimonies of them say, I didn't know.
yeah.
Actually thought this was the only way. Someone will say to you, I actually thought I was showing a love because that's how I saw my father or
Yeah.
my male role models showing it. They didn't know another way of being. They
Yeah.
didn't know she mustn't, both of them must share care. They didn't know that I must play with my children, how to play with your kids and spend time with them. They thought the only way to be is like you're the disciplinarian.
Yeah.
the man must do everything and you must discipline. And when they've learned about gender transformative ways of being in the home and in the relationship, those restoration stories change. And like I said, for us, then they contribute to creating safer homes for children. And if children are growing up in positive caregiving environments, what happens for them? They're going to be positive caregivers one day,
Yeah.
husbands, wives. They're going to rear children, and we're going to create a non-violent society.
Wow, that is incredible. And so is there a way that like we can support the issues that are happening in the communities around us?
Yeah, well, the first one for us is like, I mean, this education awareness, just for you recording this and sharing it wherever you share it is powerful.
Hmm.
We also hope that, for us, what part of our advocacy is we try to also engage corporates because people spend time at home. I mean, like now, I would be with my kids, right? I'm traveling now, so I'm away. But when you are, so you don't have the energy to now sit in a lecture and in a workshop and listen to mosaic. So what happens is that during work hours,
Hmm.
that's when we do most of our work. But you are going to end up talking to young people, unemployed people. But that also pathologizes the issue. Like we're making it like as if GBV is only affecting poor, unemployed, or Black people in the townships who
Hmm.
have time. Oh, it affects educated people like you and I. It
Yeah.
affects people who are employed, who are at work. So what you want is corporates to open up spaces
Hmm.
and to put it as part of their human resource personal development work to ensure
Hmm.
that this works. So that's one of the things. And of course, raising money is not easy. We hope to, so we always want people to donate to the work. Um, there are many things, particularly legal fees. Um, like I actually am sitting with a case now. I'm wondering how can I help this woman
Hmm.
find ways because her ex-partner can afford a lawyer. She now has run out of funds trying to just protect a child and herself. We need
Wow.
money to be able to pay for legal services for her to be able to fight this injustice. You
Yeah.
get what I mean? So
Yeah.
those are some of the things that people can help to support the work.
Oh, wow.
And also to not ignore. I mean, one of the big things I think actually I forgot to mention when you asked what causes or what women experience
Hmm.
is that for the longest time, we've treated domestic and intimate partner violence as a private matter.
Hmm.
So if I punch you now, you easily can go to the police and I'll be prosecuted and arrested and prosecuted. But if we were in a domestic relationship, oh no, maybe he didn't mean it.
Hmm.
Oh, maybe you can work it out. Oh no, why are you talking outside the home? You know what I mean? So those pressures as well. So what
Yeah.
we want to be open about this, that it's not okay, that churches are safe spaces to come and disclose and you will not be judged and you will be helped. You know what I mean? You can go to your pastor, your bishop, you can go to your manager at work, you can go anywhere and people are not going to shame you into disclosing. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? There is help, and you'll be referred to spaces like Mosaic. You'll be taken to the police, and the police will respond. And that's part of the work that we hope can be spread.
Oh, that's incredible. And so it, by the sounds of it, it's quite emotional, the work that you do. It's quite emotionally engaging. So what keeps you going when the workload feels heavy, or not even the workload, but the work that you do feels heavy or a bit overwhelming?
I still pray. My answer still, I am on my knees and pray for strength. I read my scriptures. I go to church. That is a big part. My faith is a big part of my wellness.
Hmm.
Um, I also, have a supportive partner and children. I play with them and I take moments to decompose and to decompress away from the work. So
Hmm.
it's not always just like dark and gloomy, but also we work with humor. We laugh a lot about what we face.
Hmm.
We don't mask, we don't pretend it doesn't exist. There are formal ways in which we also do debriefing. Yeah, so that's for me, those are things that are quite important in order to balance. the emotional side of it. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And so, in a professional manner, who do you think has been a great inspiration to you along this journey?
Oh, many people, many people have been an inspiration and or mentors. I've had many adult women that have mentored me to be the leader that I am.
Mhm.
Actually, my previous boss from Repcare, Christina Nomdu, really shaped the way I work. Lauren Dollar, a friend of mine that I worked, all of them have become friends.
Yeah.
I work with formidable women who have really shaped the way I think, the way I show up, in a real and lived way. Yeah, so from technical skills to ways of thinking. So yeah,
Oh, awesome. And if you weren't doing the work that you are, what do you think that you would be doing instead?
I'll be cooking. I would run a restaurant, literally. I would run a restaurant and it would be called Ubuntu Cuisine.
Uh-huh.
And it will be a sharing restaurant. I really love the idea of like almost like an Ethiopian way of like having
Yeah.
food at the table, but also like it will only have round tables. You cannot have square. You always face each other. There will
Hmm.
be no cell phones. And the idea is also like you eat, but like it's about gathering around food, sharing food, but also and that you don't waste food. So the
Hmm.
idea of sharing is that there's no food waste. Um, but also major thing is around just having this it's a thinking space. You are
Yeah.
able to come to this restaurant, eat, but also like speak, having engagements, thoughts, and ways of solving the world, ways of decompressing and sharing, emotions. I must actually do it.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
Actually, part of this is that I hope that this podcast is going to go to someone who's going to want to invest in my idea.
Yes, I hope so too, because it sounds like a place where I want to be. That's an amazing
That's what
idea.
I would do. I'll
That's
spend
yeah.
my days cooking. So when I solve violence, I'm gonna cook.
There we go. I'll join you. I love to cook as well. So
Oh,
I'll join
wonderful. You see, I already have an army of employees and
you.
shareholders. I love it.
Uh, definitely. And so just kind of going to a little bit of like a more fun side. What is one thing that most people won't expect about you?
You know, I actually think that people will not expect that I've got a soft side. I think people think I'm so hardcore. And I think that people don't like, yes, I work in an emotional way, but I appear like I'm a very straightforward person
Yep.
and I'm very like no nonsense type, and I know that.
Hmm.
So I think when like I know I mean yeah, like I know my especially like even I know that my friends, my very best friend, when I'm being like emotional, they don't even believe. My siblings even don't believe it. Last year, like my team made such a beautiful cake and it was a nice surprise. I didn't even expect it. We always get chocolates. All of us get a celeb chocolate. But they went all out and did like a beautiful cake and I shed a tear. And the video was shared on the Mosaic page and my sisters like shared it on the family group and be like, these were crocodile tears. Were you faking it? Oh, what are you? Oh, you are not emotional. Because I'm not a crier in general. So
Yeah.
I think that is one thing that surprises people
Oh
about me.
wow. That is amazing. Yeah, no. I knowing you a bit, I would say maybe not emotional, but you definitely know how to express your emotions.
That's what I think.
So wow, that's really interesting. And so just some advice. What advice would you give to someone who wants to get involved in women's rights and support survivors of abuse?
Please join us. That's one. But I think my advice is look, it is the reward is great, but it is emotional.
Hmm.
You have to really be for the love of it.
Yeah,
Um, it's not financially rewarding. You know what I mean? It's like being a nurse or a teacher.
yeah.
Like my husband would like to always remind the kids when they're demanding expensive things, like, your mother and I have made these choices of working for an NGO and being education. We have made deliberate choices to be of service to the world. We are not necessarily going to build you a trust fund. So we're going to give you education so that if you want to do better than us financially, you're welcome to do so. Know what I mean? So my advice is, first of all, like, just be really interested in the cause. You know what I mean? You can't do it because it's a career, you know.
Yeah.
This is a calling in a lot of ways because it is taxing. You would do like I saw a meme on LinkedIn that says no one grows up to say I'll be an NGO leader. I didn't even know that was gonna be a thing or
Yeah.
it existed or what NGOs were, but here I am, you know. And so my advice is always being like, this is rewarding work.
Hmm.
If you want to do it, you do it because it's a calling. And look, income will come. No one, I'm not doing this for free. I do earn an income,
Yeah.
but it's not the driving force. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so you have to be all of that. And you also have to be interested in reading, you know, like you actually have to be interested in reading. It's not enough to just be passionate. You have to understand that, you know, what is the problem?
Yeah.
Because and then what and then from the problem, what can be the solution and what is an outcome? Because you can't just like, I'm working to solve women's rights. What about women's rights? What about the problem that you want to solve?
Yeah.
How do you want to solve? What do you need? What kind of team? And so it's important to just not be like, I want to start an NGO. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that's maybe the pitfall of leadership in NGOs where people do not understand the problem, or
Yeah.
the problem is so big that they want to solve it all. You can't. And that's why collaboration and relationships are important. So you need that, and you need to be aware of all of that.
Oh, thank you. And if there is one message that you could leave with the audience, what would it be?
We can solve violence, you know?
Hmm.
We can let go of hate and we can solve it. This is a problem that we can solve. But we need everyone to make a commitment to not be violent.
Yeah.
Um, and that begins with each of us, you know. And part of not being violent is sometimes we can be bystanders to violence and think
Hmm.
that's okay. So part of it is you commit that you're not going to be bystander, you commit that you're not going to keep quiet, you commit that even if it's your bishop and you see it happen, you're going to speak up, you know. If
Hmm.
it's the president, you're going to speak up, you know. You're not going to keep quiet just because it's somebody you love and admire. Even
Yeah.
people who love and admire can do really horrible things. And so it's important that we stand up. And if we each lift where we stand in our communities, guess what? We will end it.
Definitely. Well, thank you so, so much for being a part of this podcast. It's been amazing chatting to you and getting to know more about the world, basically. I feel like I've loved talking to you. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity and yeah, and you creating the space.
Well, thank you. And I hope that you have a wonderful evening further. Well, thank you so much to Tarisai for having this conversation and sitting down with us. I have learned so much, and I can see the ways that I can improve and do better, and support the communities around me to promote love, instead of violence. And we are looking forward to the amazing things that you will do in the future. Thank you so much to our listeners, and we will catch you in our next episode.